Hello, I'm Karen Giannoni. This is the Iran War Today, our daily briefing, bringing you up to date with all you need to know on day 90 of the US-Israel war with Iran. Well, let's start with some of today's key developments. The White House confirms reports the US and Iran have agreed the terms of a deal that would extend their current ceasefire, but it still needs to be approved by President Trump. It comes as the US accuses Iran of a dangerous violation of the ceasefire after it fired a missile at Kuwait. Iran's supreme leader says the US and Israel are seeking to destabilize his country. Israel has carried out more strikes on Lebanon on what it says are Hezbollah targets.
5 people were killed and more than 20 injured, among them children, when an Israeli strike hit the first floor of this building.
And the economic impact of the war hits the price of mangoes imported into the United States. We find out why. Well, first today, what appears to be a diplomatic breakthrough on a possible peace deal. White House officials have confirmed reports that the United States and Iran have agreed the terms of a deal that would extend their current ceasefire for 60 days. Crucially, though, it needs President Trump's final approval, and we haven't had any word yet from Iran. The move comes hours after the United States carried out fresh strikes against Iran. US officials said the actions were purely defensive and intended to maintain the ceasefire. US Central Command said it had shot down 5 Iranian attack drones over the Strait of Hormuz and struck a military site in Bandar Abbas, a strategic port city, to prevent a 6th attack. Iranian State TV carried a statement from Iran's Revolutionary Guard saying it had retaliated against a US airbase in the region. The Iranians didn't say where it was, but American officials later accused Iran of a dangerous violation of the ceasefire by launching a ballistic missile at Kuwait. State TV also showed a video released by the IRGC, which it said were missiles being launched. The BBC hasn't been able to verify the footage, and we don't know where or when it was filmed. The Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei has accused the US and Israel of seeking to destabilize his country. He's not been seen in public since assuming office. A written message was read on State TV.
The enemy's blind plan after the imposed war, the economic pressure and the political and propaganda siege is to create divisions and disintegration in order to compensate for military defeats and bring the nation to its knees.
The United States is putting more economic pressure on Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The Treasury Secretary said Washington would prevent Iranian airlines from accessing landing spots, among other measures. His announcement comes a day after the Treasury Department detailed measures against Iran's new agency that collects fees on ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz. Well, let's go live to Washington and our White House reporter, Bernd Debusman. Bernd, what more can you tell us about this reported deal?
Well, earlier today, in the last hour and a half or so, U.S. sources confirmed previous reporting from Axios that what was essentially agreed to was a 60-day extension of the existing ceasefire that began on 8th May. And that would give the U.S. and Iranian side time to, at the very least, begin to sit down and discuss some of the more substantive and complex technical issues that they would need to work out for there to be a final agreement, namely Iran's nuclear program and the highly enriched uranium that's still within Iran. It's not clear how that would be removed. President Trump had suggested in the past few days that it could be removed by the U.S., that the U.S. could work with Iran to dilute it in place or in a third location, but we still don't have any clarity on that. Of course, this deal is still subject to President Trump's final approval, and we haven't heard from the Iranian side yet what their response is.
But as we've touched on, new sanctions from the Treasury Department, what can you tell us about those?
Well, earlier today, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent came out quite forcefully against any suggestion that Iran would have any role to play in tolling or managing the flow of vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, notably, he said that the U.S. is prepared to sanction other countries, namely Oman, if they worked with Iran on any sort of project to toll the Strait of Hormuz. That's quite a significant announcement. Oman is a significant U.S. ally. It's received U.S. weapons in the past, but the tone from the Trump administration certainly seems to be that it won't accept any future in which Iran is establishing any sort of governance or of the Strait of Hormuz. Last night, we also saw the Treasury Department announce sanctions against the Persian Gulf Strait Authority that was announced by Iran a few weeks ago. That would mean that any ship from any country that transits through the strait would be subject to U.S. sanctions and could face U.S. penalties or legal action.
Bernd, thank you very much. Bernd Dibusmas, our White House reporter there. With me in the studio is BBC Persian's special correspondent Kasra Naji. Kasra, first of all, your reaction to the news of that possible framework deal.
I'm surprised because we had this military confrontation last night between the two sides in the Gulf, over Kuwait, over the Strait of Hormuz, and this was the second time in 4 days that the two sides came to blows against each other. And the speech and statements yesterday by President Trump, which was quite sort of negative in the sense that he said, we're not happy with what we're hearing from the Iranian side, but we will eventually get there, we will make them, agree, and so on and so forth. So the signals from both sides, in fact, the Iranian side, there was no sign of any diplomatic activities going on vis-a-vis Pakistan or Qataris. So now is a surprising announcement from the White House. And I hear from some reports in Tehran that the Iranian leadership is also considering this. So there is a Supreme National Security Council in Iran, which is the top decision-making body. So they have to approve it, and once they approve it, I suppose it has to be also signed off by Iran's supreme leader, who we haven't seen for months. So we will have to wait and see whether it actually comes true.
And what do you make of the new message from the new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei?
Not much. It's not that significant. He put out this statement on the 45th anniversary of the start of the parliament in Islamic regime after the overthrow of the Shah 45 years ago, that anniversary. But he is clearly worked up with the US. He says that the parliamentarians have to be united, keep their unity in the face of the challenges by evil doers and the great Satan, i.e. America, but nothing more in there.
Kasra, okay, thank you very much for now. Kasra Naji. Now, Israel has intensified its military campaign in Lebanon against what it says are Hezbollah targets. The Israeli military struck the southern city of Tyre overnight after tens of thousands of people were given a 2-hour warning to leave. The number of displaced people reached more than 1 million. Around 14% of Lebanese territory is now under Israeli evacuation orders. The IDF also hit the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Israeli media say the strike was targeting the missile commander of a militia linked to Hezbollah and Iran. There was also a deadly airstrike on a building in the city of Sidon. Our Middle East correspondent Karine Torbey sent us this update from the scene.
5 people were killed and more than 20 injured, among them children, when an Israeli strike hit the first floor of this building. It happened in the very early hours of the morning in this neighborhood that is very close to Sidon. And this has created real shock among the residents here because this neighborhood has been deemed safe until this very morning. For decades, it had not been targeted. And it is all happening as Israel is issuing new evacuation orders for several towns in the south, but also to the historical city of Tyre. And this is creating a new wave of displacement. It's all happening while the Israeli officials are declaring that they have given orders to expand the military operations in Lebanon.
That's Karine Torbey reporting from Sidon. Well, the Israeli government spokesman David Mencer, in a briefing with journalists, outlined Israel's objectives in Lebanon.
Israel's Air Force made targeted strikes in Beirut. In the last 24 hours in Tyre, Israel's Air Force took out a Hezbollah terrorist cell as it departed to launch an attack, and the Air Force have released that footage. In addition to Tyre, more than 135 Hezbollah terror targets in the Bekaa Valley and southern Lebanon were also hit.
Well, let's go live to our correspondent Emir Nada, who's in Jerusalem. Emir, Israel's attacks are continuing, including today on Beirut. Tell us more.
That's right. Israel still hasn't identified who was the target of this airstrike on the capital city, Beirut. It hit an apartment block in a neighborhood in the south of the city, an area where Hezbollah has support and is believed to have operations there. There has been reporting that Israel was targeting Ali al-Hussein, who's the supposed leader of a rocket missile unit, part of a militia that's fighting alongside Hezbollah but is connected to the IRGC in Iran. Local reports suggesting that the strike wasn't successful. However, we have heard from a source close to the Ministry of Health in Lebanon that a 3-month-old baby was killed. Many of the details around sort of casualty figures in all of these Israeli airstrikes in the past 24 hours have been emerging quite slowly. So we've been trying to piece together exactly who's been injured in these particular Israeli airstrikes. Now, there is a suggestion in local media that this strike on Beirut, which was the first time the capital had been hit since Israel announced this intensified military campaign in Lebanon 3 days ago, the reason why they did strike Beirut and escalated there is because this morning they've announced another Israeli soldier has been killed by a Hezbollah drone. Hezbollah has become increasingly effective using these wired drones that are impervious to the sort of jamming technology that Israel uses, and Hezbollah has been publishing the footage of this online. Around 11 Israeli troops have been killed by these drones since the purported ceasefire came into effect between Israel and Lebanon a month ago. Obviously, that hasn't done anything to stop the violence, and indeed we're seeing this escalated Israeli campaign now. And now tomorrow you have Lebanese and Israeli delegations still due to meet in the United States at the Pentagon to discuss this ceasefire deal and how they move forward. They agreed to extend it by 45 days 2 weeks ago. Both sides still clearly keen to continue the talks going forward. But as many people observe, there's an element of this being a sideshow to the emerging US-Iran ceasefire deal. As we're all aware, Iran insists that all fronts of the war in the regional war must end in the deal that they strike with the United States.
Emir, thank you very much, Emir Nada, there live from Jerusalem. Well, we've regularly reported on the economic impact of the war here on the Iran War Today. Today, we look at how high transport costs because of the conflict have impacted the price of mangoes. It is prime mango season in India, which means the race to get as many of the tropical fruits over to the United States is on. But costs have jumped significantly. Our New York business correspondent Samira Hussain reports.
Precious cargo straight from India to an airport 12 miles from New York City. Available only a few weeks a year, but always in high demand.
Oh, it's exquisite. That is the real mango smell.
Indian mangoes are big business in America.
How much money would you say that you brought in last year in mangoes?
More than $1 million.
The sweet taste of home comes at a bitter price.
The war, the airline jumped the cargo price.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like more than double price this year.
The supply chain price is high, gas is high, paying to the people is high amount. So yeah, everything is adding too much.
So delicate, these can only be imported by air, but worth the effort.
The mangoes that you get in the U.S.,
It's like a potato. It's a table fruit. This is the real fruit.
There are 408 cases of mangoes inside this container. And if they're being sold at roughly $50 a pop, that means you're looking at about a little more than $20,000 worth of mangoes.
Viral Shah escorts the mangoes on the final leg of their 8,000-mile journey.
This fresh mango in India would cost roughly 70 cents. Here in this store in New Jersey,
it costs 7 times that.
If you want it, you can eat it. Like, expensive doesn't matter, right? Once in a year. I already eat 1 box. So this is the second one, but I'm just debating.
For some, the taste of home is priceless. Samira Hussein, BBC News, New Jersey.
Nice.
Well, whether you're joining us on YouTube, TikTok, Sounds, radio or TV, thank you for your time. We will be back at the same time tomorrow with the Iran War Today.